Good evening, student athletes and families. Thank you for joining us on our Q&A for our fall recruiting class of 2020. We're going to dive pretty quickly into the Q&A, but before we do, we're going to do a quick overview of kind of what you're going to be seeing tonight, as well as introducing you to some of our team.
I want to introduce myself. My name is Matt Sternberg. I run the business development for the honor roll programs. I've actually been here for over 5 years now and have helped thousands of student athletes like you guys who are looking to play softball. We also run baseball camps at the next level using academics to do so. Sports were a really big part of my life. And the recruiting world, and it's been a pleasure to be able to do this and speaking to you guys tonight. Thank you.
And thank you for being here, Matt. And my name is Max McKenna. I'm our Senior Manager of Product Marketing here at HeadFirst. I grew up playing baseball, ended up going to college for baseball at Amherst College, played 4 years of baseball there before I went into teaching and coaching at the high school level, first up in Massachusetts at Phillips Andover Academy, and then working at the Master's School, a small private school outside New York City, during the summers, coaching, recruiting, advising, that kind of thing, and then came back full-time to HeadFirst 5.5 years ago, and since then have been working closely with our baseball and softball showcases, as well as Matt mentioned, helping a lot of families kind of navigate this often mystifying world of what the high academic recruiting process looks like, especially around this crucial time of year for 2020s. So first up, what is HeadFirst? HeadFirst, we offer a showcase platform to help high achieving and high potential student athletes who are focused on academics efficiently gain exposure to the right colleges for them that offer the right experience at the next level. Key parts here are this academically focused and high achieving student athlete, both on the field and in the classroom, many of you guys are. And then also this idea of efficiently targeting the right college at the next level, not just gaining exposure to any old college, but the right types of softball programs that can offer a quality athletic and academic experience at the college level. And we do this through kind of 3 bullet points that we speak to. One is unparalleled access, which we'll certainly touch on, but this idea of getting up close and personal with college coaches. Insight and guidance with Q&As like this one, as well as some of our programming, some of the content that we offer about how to navigate this recruiting process and what the next steps you can take are to really make sure that you're taking advantage of the opportunities in front of you. And then experience. And we have over 21 years of experience. This is our 21st year running honor roll camps, and we've seen a lot of success for student athletes. How HeadFirst can fit into your recruiting process, it fits in a number of ways. As I mentioned, a really key piece of this is getting the efficient, guaranteed exposure to the right list of schools. Again, key here is the efficiency, not just getting experience to any old list of 40 or 50 schools, but are all those schools potential fits for you at the next level from an academic standpoint as well? And then also a key piece here is engaging directly with these college coaches. These college coaches are recruiting the character of the girls in their program. They want student athletes who are the right fit culturally for their team, as well as obviously able to perform on the field and in the classroom at their level as well. But our showcase platform offers a really unique opportunity to get face-to-face, up close and personal with these coaches to really help make some immediate and impactful strides in your recruiting.
I think what's important is there's a lot of events and other things that are out there. And, every which way you're looking in your inbox, there's something that's coming in. I think we look at it in 2 big ways of it being a platform, right? That platform is going to help you in your recruiting process, but discovery as well. So let that be the opportunity. And it may be where you've been in touch with a coach, and now this is your time to really spend 2 full days with them and find new fits as well, because you can't see them all. It's tough to do. HeadFirst gives you that platform to be able to do it. And the last thing, and you mentioned this before, is results. We've been doing this a really long time, right? 21 years. It's been a really unique opportunity for us to be able to see the success that we've had. We're going to show you on another slide after this some of the numbers, but here is some of the kids that we've seen come through our program and end up on some of these high academic rosters. What you're going to find is a really nice list of high academic schools that were the right fits for them, but also a very eclectic list, a list from high D1s to Ivy League schools to mid-majors, whatever you may want to call them, to some of your smaller high academic D3s. And I think that's what's really, really key about this. So we have we have 5 camps that are on the that have been on the calendar for 2019. We were in 4 really successful camps, 2 out west, 2 up in New York at the end of August, and now we have 1 more remaining, which is going to be coming up that second weekend in November, so November 9th and 10th, right there at the beautiful Boomba complex, which is actually really nice for us. So we're looking forward to, of course, seeing a lot of you folks out there that still are looking to come out and play at the next level. As I mentioned before, these schools are schools that will be with us. At this event, there's going to be a whole lot more, but here's just some of the highlights here. And again, as I was saying before, from Max's school, Amherst, to UVA, to MIT, to Georgetown, those are 4 very, very different schools, but they all are really looking for the same type of kid in terms of that high academic nature. And I think what you're going to find is a lot of these schools are still looking and still looking for 2020s, which we'll get into.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I know that's a really important question on everybody's mind. So now we're going to roll directly into the Q&A. You can see there right in the GoToWebinar toolbar, you should have the option to click on that questions tab, type in your question, hit send. Certainly feel free to send that in to us. And then we will either answer it over chat, or more likely we'll answer it, live right now. And as we do that, we'll just kind of highlight again, as Matt touched on, some of our alumni that are achieving at the next level. This past season, we had 171 alumni playing at the next level at these schools over there that you see listed on the right. A key thing here is a wide variety of different schools that they're offering: Division I, Division III, California, the Northeast, New England, and really everything in between. The key unifying factor behind all of these and behind the schools that you'll see at our camps is this idea of really high academic achievement. Something that is really important to us is we believe that the really key thing to connect you with what you do after college is the academics, and this has to be an academic decision that you guys are making. So first up, some questions coming in. The first one that we'll answer is one that came in on our Instagram earlier today. Matt, to show coaches that you're interested, especially as a 2020, what are the questions that you should ask them to demonstrate that interest and to really kind of further whether you are interested in their program as well?
Well, I think what's important is to make sure you're not necessarily wasting your time, because you want to make sure that they have not filled up their recruiting class altogether. So I think it's an option where right now you can pick up the phone. Right? You can send an email. You have other ways besides just email to be able to communicate with them and ask them, where are they with their 2020 class, with catchers, with outfielders? Say, I think that's going to kind of help gauge that. Then I would, form a short email, getting right to the point with your SAT score, with your GPA, maybe attach a transcript and ask, hey, I'm very interested in this particular major. Do you have kids on the team that are kind of following suit? Maybe you have a personal connection to the school that you want to share with them. Those are 2 things right off the bat that coaches can kind of, relate to. They see girls that are in a similar boat. But I think what's really key with that is, doing the intel for yourself to make sure that, hey, if this school is filled up and you really want to go to that school for softball, maybe you find a lookalike that may still be looking.
Absolutely. And I think that a really key piece of this is doing the research on your end as well. And then using that research to really personalize any and all touch points that you have with college coaches. Dear Coach, comma, is not a legitimate greeting in an email, especially at this time for 2020s when you really need to be working down the funnel with these schools. So, it's as simple as knowing the coach's name and putting that in an email. I generally advise that student athletes put 3 to 4 unique things about the school in that first point of contact. So if I'm really interested in Amherst, I should give Coach Johnson I should address it to Coach Johnson, dear Coach Johnson, I'm very interested in Amherst because 1, 2, 3, I really like your guys' focus on the humanities. I'm interested in the reinvestment that you've put into the hard sciences in the last couple of years with building the Gelb Science Center or whatever. Do some research and know some specific facts about that school, and then use those to inform why it might be the right fit for you. The other piece is, at this point for 2020s, as you are getting really to the deadline for early decision or early admission, and then also for regular decision, we can kind of talk about the distinction between those two and how they play into the recruiting process. But it's really important that the way that you demonstrate interest to coaches at this point is you tell them that you are interested. It's not time to be coy or beat around the bush or play will they, won't they with the programs that you're very interested in. It is key that at this point, this late in the game, coaches know you are interested. Just the same, it's very important that you ask coaches directly and for candid and direct feedback if they are interested in you, if they will move to the next step with you in their recruiting. Will they take your admissions folder to their admissions liaison and get you an early read in terms of the academic side of things? Are you going to be a supported athlete in their early admissions process, in their regular admissions to process? Are you on their recruiting board, or where do you fit? And the only way to do that and to get that feedback that directly is to ask, which, believe me, we know is a very, very scary prospect for a 16, 17-year-old student athlete. You're walking up to Coach Lacey Wood at Harvard and she's holding the golden ticket to your dream school, right? And it can be very intimidating to ask her, hey, Coach Wood, where do I fall in your recruiting? Do you like me? Because the answer might be no. But until you ask that, you're kind of stuck churning your wheels in the quicksand, and you can't move on to the next school on your list or to finding the right holistic fit until you have that answer. So it's a really important time for seniors to be asking for that direct feedback, understanding that for the next month or so, that answer still might be maybe, or I don't know yet. But pretty soon that answer is going to be a yes or a no. And when it's a no, it's always going to hurt. When it's a yes, it's going to be great. But either way, it takes you further down the funnel to finding the right fit. So it's really, really important that you are demonstrating explicit interest in these schools that you are interested in, and also that you are asking coaches where you might fit into their recruiting puzzle.
And I think that's a great segue into the next question, where we can kind of combine the two, which is, what is the existing opportunity for 2020s around this time of the year? And flat out, are coaches still recruiting 2020s now and into this fall? So why don't you take the first part of that, and then I can kind of jump in.
For sure, yeah. I think there is a misperception in the space that at this time of year there are no opportunities on the board for 2020s. All the 2020 recruiting classes are full, and there's nothing out there, and that's just patently false. We've seen results shake out from our camp in early to mid-November for student athletes in that class. The reason for this is that the types of schools that we work with are incredibly well-renowned and well-respected academic institutions. And so they aren't the types who are committing 2022s right now because they're unable to. They can't walk in with 1 or 2 years of a high school transcript to their admissions liaison and say, hey, this person's coming to Brown, right? Because it's just not enough to tell the admissions department the full story. So we refer to this as the high academic slowdown, which means that the recruiting process for these types of schools that you see here on your screen does push later than it does for a lot of other schools across the country. And what that means is that there are still opportunities for 2020s on the board at a lot of these schools, not necessarily at all of them. Some of them will have filled up their 2020 class, and that's why it's important that you ask where you fall with these coaches. But at a lot of these schools, they are looking to, and they are using this fall and their on-campus prospect camps and our camp in November, as well as our camps that we were in August. They are using those to fill out the last needs in their 2020 class. Now, the other piece of this too is early admissions. A lot of coaches, most coaches want to get the bulk of their recruiting class in during the early admission phase, whether that's early action or early decision at their school, because that is when they tend to have a bit more leverage in the process with their admissions departments. But they might think that they have a recruiting class of 4 or 5 girls coming in, and then only 3 of them commit to applying early decision or get through admissions because something happened on the first half of their senior year transcript or whatever the case may be. And so around the early decision deadlines each year, we see a bit of turmoil and a bit of, chaos, for lack of a better word, that does create additional opportunities for 2020s, as some spots do tend to open up around that time, just depending on things that might change and be shaken up around that time.
So, what are actions that you can do to kind of speed this up, because time is running out, because you eventually have to go ahead and apply. So to answer my own question, I think, what you have to do is you have to say, is there one or two schools that I'm in touch with, and those are the schools? Great. And what you should do is you should find out when their prospects camps are, and you should go there, because you're probably already getting the invite and you've been in touch. But for a lot of other kids who may not know exactly the one or two schools that they're interested in, and they're still looking for opportunities, because a lot of things do happen to some of the kids that are not committed at this point that didn't fall your way, and that's okay. So that's why an event like HeadFirst, where you can see the 50-plus schools with not a lot of kids that are going to be there, small ratios, and do it by getting a lot of reps, has been helpful to a lot of 2020s, or for seniors at that point in this stage, where they can go out there and they can say, okay, not every school is looking for 2020s. There's a lot of schools on this list where they are full, but there's certainly going to be a good amount that are looking for that one, that two, that three kids that are really going to be helpful. And then even some of those smaller D3s where they may very well be looking into next year as they go into regular decision. We see that all the time. So talk more about the kind of timeline for the early decision into early action, what the difference is there, and then into regular decision, because that will play obviously to the timeline.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that, as I said, a lot of coaches do want to round out their recruiting class during that early admissions phase, which is generally November 1st or November 15th at a lot of these schools. For some of them, December 1st, a little bit later on into November. A lot of them do want to do it there. Because again, that's when they have a little bit more pull in admissions. And you see this really across the board, whether it's with athletes or not. Admissions rates at these highly competitive schools does tend to be a little bit higher during early admissions. So if there's one school that is your top school and you are committed to it, it would definitely behoove you to apply early decision to that, whether it's with or without softball, just depending on how your recruiting process shakes out. A lot of them do want to get their stuff wrapped up during that time frame. It lets them start to transition to coaching in season, as well as recruiting their 2021 incoming class, so they can kind of close the books on 2020s a little bit earlier and get out there and start looking at the 2021s. Now, that's not always the case, though. A lot of these coaches don't have that luxury because, again, they might need to see that a really more rounded transcript come through, where it might have to include. You might be a really strong academic candidate, but just because you're a really strong academic candidate doesn't guarantee you admission to these types of schools, because they have a lot of really strong academic candidates who are applying to their school. So you might be on the short list for early admission, but the admissions department just wants to see you come through with one more strong semester of senior grades, so they might push you to the regular admissions decision. And these coaches know their way around through admissions departments. And this is where, Matt, to your point earlier about kind of what should players be doing now as their time is starting to run out. A really key piece of this is coach communication. As a student athlete, you have to be communicating proactively with the coaches at the schools that you are interested in and whose radar you are on. As much as, coach, are you interested in me? I'm really interested in you. Where do I fall in your recruiting process? What are my next steps to get recruited by you? Can you take my admissions folder over for an early read? Should I apply early? And sometimes they might say, we'd love it for you to apply early. You're one of our supported athletes. Great. You get to wrap your college selection process a little bit earlier and a little bit more stress-free than a lot of your classmates. Great for you. They might say, hey, we really like you. You are one of our supported athletes, but we believe that given your profile, we think you'd be a better fit for regular decision. And they will know how to navigate that within their own admissions departments as well. But that communication directly with the coach about what your next steps are or what you should be doing with their school in particular is absolutely crucial at this time of year, and really not sitting back and hoping that something works out, but attacking this process proactively, both from the coach communication standpoint and also from the standpoint of getting in front of these coaches one last time with a chance to impress them, whether that's at a camp like ours or whether that's at a school-specific prospect camp at 2 or 3 of the schools that are really high on your list.
So I think another one, and we talked about it earlier, but I think it's important to just bring up again because I know I've seen it twice come in here, is a little bit more about how do I get feedback and an honest assessment and interest from coaches. And I think, as we had said before, the number one thing, ask. You got to ask. That's really important because you don't have time to really be messing around with that. However, I think there's 2 ways, or really 3 ways to be able to do that. I think the time is now to be able to take everything you've done over the last 3-4 years that you've now wrapped into a video or a profile and be able to send that out to these coaches to be able to say, Coach, I'm not sure where your recruiting class stands, but I am really, really interested in your school for X, Y, and Z reason. Here below is a little bit more information on me, a link to my profile, a link to my video. Arm them with what they need so they can start to make these decisions if they have not seen you before. The next one I would say is just that, going and finding out when their camp is potentially. But the best part is being able to come out to an event like HeadFirst where you can see those 50-plus schools and being able to face-to-face say to them, Coach, I know this is the end of the road for me. I am really interested. I want to apply to your school. What would it take? What is the next steps here? And they have good ways of saying, thanks, but no thanks, or this is what we need to do. I'm really glad that I saw you. And I specifically remember having 3 different conversations with families last year at our November camp where they said that. They said, I'm really glad that I was able to see you because I didn't know much about you, and I did have a space that opened up because a kid couldn't get in, and I want you to apply regular decision. And it worked out. And actually, she's one of the girls on these baseball card pictures in the back here that we have. We're really excited about it. So again, I think it's about saying, is college softball really what is going to be for me? And if it is, go for it. That's what I think is important.
Absolutely. And I think that asking for direct feedback, as I said, is the best way to know where you stand. It also, as I mentioned before, is absolutely terrifying, and we completely understand that. To kind of restate what I said before, every no that you get through this process, and I'm sure you've gotten no's, you're going to get no's. If you haven't, God bless you. That is tremendous. You are a 1 in a million case. You're going to hear no through this process. Every no, though, is a gift that takes you further down the path towards finding the right fit. And that's a really important way to reframe it, I think, and to allow you to learn from every no. There are different types of no's that you might hear from a coach. You might hear you know what, I think that you can play in the NESCAC, but we're not currently recruiting a catcher because we just recruited an incoming freshman catcher. We have a junior and a senior co-captain catchers. That's just not the positional need that we have right now. Okay. From that, you might have learned that Bates, your dream school, you always dreamed of being a Bobcat. Maybe that isn't a fit, but you learned that maybe you should go talk to Bowdoin because they play a similar level of softball and maybe you do fit their puzzle. The other kind of no might be, you look at Lafayette, we don't project you as a Patriot League level player. And that is still a no, and it's still going to hurt. But you learn something from that where you say, okay, maybe the Patriot League is just beyond my potential as a softball player. So maybe I should readjust my sights and start to think about some of the Division III Centennial Conference teams that look an awful lot like the Patriot League from an education academic standpoint, but play maybe more my speed of softball. So reframing every no as a gift and as a learning opportunity is really important. Also, understand it's very difficult and they're always going to hurt, but they're a really important thing to take you further down the path towards finding the right fit for yourself at the next level.
So I think we have time, for one more?
Yeah, let's take one more, yeah.
Two more. I know there's a lot coming in right now. If we don't get to you, we will be following up in the next day or so with emails, with calls, we're also here. So feel free to be able to reach out to us. We have a live chat function. We have email, of course, on the phones to be able to do it. And we are still taking some enrollments for the Florida camp. But this one's not grad year specific, but I think it's important because the financial aid piece, that's a big thing. A lot of these schools, they're very, very expensive, and softball is going to play a role. And with the timing, roll out a little bit. I know you can kind of speak to some of this yourself with Amherst and kind of how that played out going into your senior year, now in your senior year. So tell me a little bit more about that and the financial versus the early decision versus regular decision.
Absolutely, yeah. So for a lot of families, the financial aid piece is a really important one. A lot of these high academic schools have tried to make it a priority where they do not want finances to get in the way of you going to the school that is the right fit. The Ivy League, the NESCAC, a lot of these schools that you see here on your screen have dedicated the bulk of their resources to being need-blind financial aid schools. They meet all demonstrated need, and they have chosen to, in the case of the NESCAC schools and the Ivy League, they've chosen to do that in a way that means that they don't give athletic money. So you cannot get an athletic scholarship in the Ivy League or at any of the Division III schools that you see here on your screen. And in the Ivy League, they also do not give any merit money. You don't get extra money at Harvard for being super smart, because guess what? Every student that's coming into their freshman class is very, very smart. What they have done is they have put all of their chips on the financial aid piece to really bring socioeconomic diversity into their freshman class and into their school as a whole. So we talked about kind of this early decision, and a question that I got this past weekend at one of our camps was, okay, I'm being pressed for an early decision, a binding admissions decision, because if you apply early decision, it is binding, and you are committing to say, if I get accepted, I am going to this school, but I might not know the financial aid piece until after. Now, two things about this. One, if you are waiting on the financial aid piece, that is the one thing that can break that bindingness, that binding piece of that contract with the early decision. If the money doesn't come through for you and you cannot afford that school, or if it doesn't look the way that you thought it was going to, you have no obligation, and you can back out from that binding decision from the early decision process. The other piece, though, is that most of these coaches, because their schools and their admissions departments and their financial aid departments have put so much investment in this piece, in the financial aid piece, a lot of them have what they call financial aid calculators, where as you go through the recruiting process at some of your top schools, at a certain point, after you have 1, demonstrated interest to these coaches, 2, received interest from these coaches, 3, gotten an early read from admissions to determine that you are admissible as part of their recruiting class, and kind of gotten on pretty firm ground from the recruiting standpoint, one thing that you can do is say, hey, coach, financial aid and FAFSA is going to be a piece of this for my family. Do you have a financial aid calculator? And what they would be able to do in the Ivy League, I know that they often have literally a calculator where they send you an Excel spreadsheet. You put in, family income and a couple other fields, and it spits back to you, here is your expected family contribution, your EFC. That is not an official number from financial aid, but it gives you a pretty good approximation of what is going to come through in terms of what your expected contribution is after any financial aid piece. If they don't have ready access to that, because some will not, they will be able to put you in touch with, in almost all cases, somebody in the admission or in the financial aid department who can give you a much clearer picture. So if that is a piece of it for you, I wouldn't let that hold you back. But again, it's another really important piece of the communication with coaches and of as you move down the funnel with the schools that you're very interested in, the softball is an important piece. The academics are obviously a crucial piece. And then the financial aid piece is another one that you as a student athlete and you as a family, as your parents and your family as a whole, has every right to make sure that you have a very clear picture of this before you walk into something like an early decision, like a binding early decision admissions picture. So ask these coaches, be very upfront with them, and really solicit everything that you need. The other piece, just as a general rule, I would say is feel free to take your time. If a coach says, hey, Max, we would love for you to be a part of our recruiting class, what do you say? If it's your dream school, you have every right in that moment to say, yes, please, I'm super excited. But you also have every right to say, Coach, I am so flattered. That is awesome. I'm really excited. Thank you so much. Can I sleep on it? Can I take 2-3 days to think about this and get the opinions of some other people and really kind of work through this in my own head to make sure that this is the right decision? Because college it's a very important decision. It's, some people look at it as a 4-year decision. I look at it as a 40-year decision. It's the network of your teammates and your classmates that you're going to be tied to coming back to, homecoming and alumni reunions. These are the people and the network that you're going to be tied to as you move forward throughout your life. So it's a really important decision, which is not to say that it should be intimidating or scary or anything like that, but it's important to take the time that you need, marshal the resources that will help you make the right decision, and make this in a very well-informed way, especially at this time for 2020s, because you are so close to this. You're on the 5-yard line. You're trying to punch it in the end zone and really lock something down. Now is the time to make sure you have all of the answers and the resources that you need to make a really good decision for yourself and for your family.
That's good. We're 5 minutes over, but we're okay.
Well, in order to respect everybody's time, I will say thank you guys so much for joining us. If you have any questions at all, this is certainly not your only or last chance to get them answered. You see there on the screen our email. Shoot us an email with any questions you have. Give us a phone call. If you pop on our blog, there's some great resources there about the recruiting process. As Matt mentioned, we also have a live chat function on our website, so you can pop on there, pop us a question, we can get back to you momentarily. Thank you all so much, and we look forward to connecting, and we wish you the best of luck in your recruiting process moving forward.